If I look at agentic, things are changing every day, every 3 months. What is happening today if I'm a financial services company or a healthcare company, KPO, BPO, any one of these digital services companies? From people oriented, it is people plus platform oriented. Nowhere data is perfect. In a real life situation, data is always noisy. As a company, we believe humans lead, agents think, bots act. That's what we call as orchestration. Given the engineering talent, given the technical talent, even for UiPath, 1 million developers of UiPath are in India. Where the real advantage from India is coming, how do I actually do these changes in the processes and make it more efficient for the world? I think that is where the real advantage comes in.
Hello and welcome to this special conversation around how Indian enterprises are operationalizing agentic AI for real business impact. I'm the host Gautam Srinivasan, and joining me for this conversation outlining the evolution of AI from pilots to production and of course talking shop around ROI, around challenges and of course India's AI ambitions is DebDeep Sengupta, who is the Area Vice President for South Asia at UiPath, the global leader in agentic automation solutions. They'd be great to have you on board for this conversation. Lots to discuss and lots to catch up. It's been, I think, close to a decade since I last met you. So let me actually ask you to share some war stories from the trenches, because you've led businesses like SAP, Cloud4C, and of course, now we have come to UiPath. Now, you've seen waves upon waves of hype cycles coming up, right? There was the ERP wave of the 2000s, 2010, we see the cloud wave, and now here we are in AI era. What's different?
Very great question. Great to meet you again, Gautam. So, I would say 3 things if I summarize first. Number 1, at a technological level, we always had systems where you have to give instruction, which will go and then execute the instruction. In the agentic era, you have systems which can reason, which can act, which can adapt. That's fundamentally different. Number 2, when you talked about ERP systems, when the transformation, in the last decade, 2000 to 2010, that decade of ERP-led transformation was basically capturing the system of records, right? From whether it's your financial system, whether it's your general ledger, whether it's your HR master records, into a structured database. That's what ERP did, and it did that very well. And it created a huge impact for many customers. When you look at the cloud era, what customers did, instead of running, it was a cost transformation project. Instead of running the large systems in their own premises, they run it on rent. It was basically a transformation of the business model of the IT operation cost. So that's what cloud did. However, when I look at the agentic side of it, AI and more specifically the agentic side of it, it is not just a technology shift, it is a shift in capability. Right? And that creates an impact at many levels, at a business model level, at a cost structure level, at a revenue level.
Let's talk more about that, because as that shift to the capability level comes about, the game becomes interesting. Because over the last 1.5 years, what we have seen is, there's a bunch of firms who do these AI pilots and they call it innovation. But the real game is, how do you extract value from it? So I want to understand from you, what's driving the need for AI? Because on the one hand, there could be a need. On the other hand, there could be a vision. On the other hand, there could be fear, saying if others are doing it and if my enterprise is not doing it, we are going to lag. What's the real driving factor here?
Why everybody's talking about AI, trying to do some kind of experiments around AI, and what is beyond those experiments? I think if I address your question. So fundamentally, I would want to differentiate in 2 ways. One is AI assisted, versus AI executed.
Okay.
And I want to talk about the nuance of it. What we have seen till so far, most of the cases is AI assisted, where it is working as a co-worker,
Okay.
as a digital co-worker, like like I chat with the system. That's what you've seen in the generative AI era. That I chat with the system, it gives me the answers, Q&A kind of a thing, conversational kind of a context. And that, if I look from a user experience perspective, it helps improve the user experience, right? If I have to actually see what is the business benefit it delivers, right? Sometimes it may not give a direct business benefit, it might improve the user experience. But when I look at AI, which is able to act, either, again, act in three modes. It is able to act fully autonomously, it is able to act with human in the loop, or it is able to act in a co-assist mode. When I look at these three stages, that is where I talked about it's a fundamental change. So it can change your cost structure. I'll give you an example. It can change your cost structure. It can help you change your business model. It can change the very outcome you want to deliver, right? Through a better customer experience or a better employee experience. Now, when I talk about cost structure, you are seeing what is happening in the GSS or the ITS industry. Everybody is under growth pressure and cost pressure. So because there's a contraction, right, which is happening between 5 to 15% on the basic margins.
It's a very profitability focused narrative.
It's a very profitability focused narrative. And the reason it is happening, instead of today outsourcing processes, many organizations are making it, I would say, automation led. Right. So that's what is impacting the business. And if organizations are doing it for their internal processes, as a byproduct, it is impacting the service providers. Right. If the service providers don't make that change, right, in their business model, and they'll not be able to deliver. Right. So that's what I said. It's a fundamental structural difference. So it's not just about the cost structure. It is how you deliver those outcomes.
All right. In this, let me bring in then the GCC aspect because it dovetails nicely with what you mentioned. Let me call up a report. According to EY's GCC Pulse Report 2025, 58% of India's GCCs or global capability centers are actively investing in agentic AI and 83% are scaling Gen AI. But these GCCs, they're accountable to, say, global HQs that watch each dollar spent. Has GCC actually become the place where agentic AI gets operationalized in India, whereas the domestic enterprises are still catching up? Because in a sense, GCCs have become these innovation incubators, which are also sandboxing the entire thing, where you say, once the GCCs do it right, then they operationalize it across the world. But then what happens to the domestic folks?
What can we learn from both the models? Right? What is GCCs doing? Can the domestic companies learn from there? And vice versa, what is happening on the domestic companies? What can the GCCs learn? If I look at the two-way process. So I'll first take the GCC. If you look at where are they applying, they're applying in areas like finance, all the back office transformation kind of a thing. They're applying on finance, they're applying on supply chain, they're applying on technology, IT kind of services, which typically you outsource to the centers. Now, where they go about doing it is they do a fantastic job of executing a given process. Right? So the decisions are possibly happening at the HQ level. Right? Which is getting deployed locally. Right? And also there are some innovations which are happening locally, which is possibly being replicated in other markets. So it's a two-way process, which I see with GCCs, which is happening in terms of agentic adoption. But it is happening in a controlled environment within the ecosystem of a large organization. Right? Now, when I look at the local companies, whether it is manufacturing or banking, that is where the real opportunity and challenge is. Because on one hand, you have a legacy ERP system or you have a legacy core banking system. On the other side, I have some custom developed software. And on the third side, I have regulators and compliances, right, which I need to manage. The true test of agentic AI or agentic automation is when it can work in an environment, when it can orchestrate across legacy, across compliance, through guardrails in a governed fashion.
That actually is a very India problem, right? Because we've got legacy infrastructure issues where the core systems might be 20, 30 years old, and you've got a shiny cloud layer underlining it. The question then, as you mentioned, is for agentic AI to work effectively, because this is a common problem cited, right? The quality of data, if it is good, the quality of the output will be good, and the quality of decisions taken by that autonomous system will be better. How does that get addressed?
So, I think we'll have to look at it from two lenses. If I have to start by saying, let me first modernize before I agentify, by the time you do that, your entire business model might change. The technologies might change, right? It's a common misnomer that I need perfect data to have a AI system or a agentic system. That's why I said it's a misnomer, because in real world, data is noisy. In every situation, nowhere data is perfect. In a real life situation, data is always noisy. So that's why I talked about orchestration. How do you orchestrate with noisy data, with legacy systems, with cloud, with governance, with regulations? That is where a framework is very important, where your agents, humans, and automation or bots can work in cohesion with human leading it, agents thinking it, and bots automation executing it in a governed, auditable, controlled fashion.
That's a myth broken for you. You don't need perfect data, but you need to make sure that your orchestration is right. Now, considering DebDeep, you speak to a lot of clients from a lot of sectors. Where are you seeing the most aggressive adoption of agentic automation in India with sectors? And where are you seeing some sectors lagging? What's your bird's eye view on this?
I would say financial services, both regulated and private players are pretty much adopting it. The other area is healthcare BPO. If I have to give you an example of where this event in Fusion and DEF CON, which are the largest events for UiPath globally, we have some of our customers coming and talking. One of them is a healthcare BPO. So what they did was, to give you a concrete example, AGS Healthcare, what they did was they manage millions of medical records for global clients, and they have a legacy system. So what they did was they wanted to get a better, faster ROI and more reliable system. So they worked with UiPath. So what they put something called what is called document understanding from UiPath. So their documents today are, their document reading accuracy is about 99%. Their billing accuracy has improved by 40%, and their turnaround time have increased by 70%. Right. So I wanted to give concrete examples. Similarly, if you look at financial services, your loan origination systems, right? If I have to apply for a home loan, does it take me 7 days or does it take me 7 hours?
We are even talking minutes.
Exactly. Or does it take 7 minutes? Depending on the kind of processing you do. How do I transform that journey? And it is not just a customer experience, it is also the cost structure. Right, and how do I scale?
So you're getting real business impact at an efficient cost. And when it's 7, it's technology for a reason. Now, let me come to you on this topic of agentic everything. When we look at it, everything is now autonomous, or at least they're talking about making it autonomous. The term is pretty liberally used. So can you give us a real example, as you mentioned about ages and financial and how the financial world is sort of looking at it, from whether it's a loan origination, loan decision, so on and so forth, these use cases where you actually seen an edge case performed successfully, being deployed and running successfully. Something you would say would be unthinkable years ago, but agentic AI is making it possible.
So I'll give you an example again from one of our customers called Omega Healthcare, which is one of the largest KPO, BPO in healthcare. So there's something called a claims denial process. Like I made a claim, how do I, deny that claim? In the past, it was fully human-led for risk, purely from a risk, compliance and a governance perspective. We worked with Omega. Today, the entire process is fully autonomous, means reading up the claims, reading up the policies, taking a decision whether to deny or to process. And if you deny, what is the justification you give for the denial?
It's a proper system-oriented.
Exactly. Right. What is the mediation? Right. What is the dispute management process? The entire thing is running autonomously with human in the loop. Right. Earlier, if I had to have 10 touch points, because in this industry, every touch point costs money. Can I do that through instead of 10 human touch points? Can I do that through 3 human touch points or 2 human touch points? That increases your efficiency. I can serve more, I can serve better, and I also eliminate human errors.
Absolutely. And the human touch point is more value oriented. Instead of 6 human layers, if there's 2 which are highly value oriented decision making, they make it right. And what's also interesting in the many conversations that I'm having is that sectors are also getting converged, because agentic AI opens up all these possibilities. The healthcare sector is also looking at more on the financial side of things, whereas you're talking about whether as a healthcare provider, I tie up with an insurance provider and then provide a continuum of care across the entire board. Now, here, I want to take the conversation more towards the ROI side of the equation, because the pressure to measure returns on AI is immense. According to a Kindle 2025 readiness report, they found that 61% of senior executives feel more pressure to prove AI ROI right now. So I want to understand, when the CFO of your client says, show me the money, Deepti, what do you say to them?
Before I address it, I'll come back to your previous comment. Talking about industries converging. What is happening today, if I'm a financial services company or a healthcare company, KPO, BPO, any one of these digital services companies, from people-oriented, it is people plus platform-oriented. It's becoming platformization. That's why agentic is helping. But it is people plus platform. How do I platformize? And then put resources, scale resources to do that. So that's where the business model impact is coming. Coming back to the ROI, if I go to a CFO and talk technology, I think that discussion will last 30 seconds. But, right, if I go and talk to the CFO, talking about what is the benefit we are going to drive, like some of the examples I gave, like how's my invoice processing coming down? How's my dunning process becoming more accurate? How's my, let's say, supply chain logistics? How can I do a better freight arbitrage? How can I get benefits of a freight arbitrage process? How can I do my bill of lading in a much better way? So if I talk that language and able to demonstrate that, how it is happening,
it's a much better value proposition.
It's a much, because to a CFO, those are far more measurable return on investment than talking agentic or AI or anything else. And if, as long as we can deliver that, show the proof of concept, at the same point of time, show what is the impact it can do to scale. At scale, that's a far easier conversation to have.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned another trend evolution which has happened, because earlier we used to talk about people, product and process. Now it's people plus platform, as that evolution has happened. But that brings me to my next question to you, Debbie, because there will also be some reticence in terms of this journey from automation to autonomy, because in a sense, you're letting the reins go, and for very sensitive sectors which are compliance heavy, there will always be that question of how much do we let go, how much do we keep humans in the loop, even though solutions from UiPath will make sure that the issues do not arise. But in that side of the conversation, how do you help allay those fears?
It is not just the human, it is also the cost. Because at what cost am I delivering? Right? Because if my cost to deliver the process is higher than a human, then no CFA will, right? It has to be efficient. That's number one. Efficiency is important. And second thing is, I think the key aspect of that, what is the role of the human? At a macro level, as a company, we believe humans lead, agents think, bots act. That's what we call as orchestration. And how do you do that in a governed environment? So what we do is that, because as I talked about, you need to have auditability, you need to have traceability, you need to have guardrails. More importantly, I talked about customers' environment. You will have modern cloud applications, you will have legacy on-premise application, you will have API-led application, you will have green screen-led application. How do I put this all of this together and have a decision tree in which I know this action is done by the agent, this action done by the human. I have a full audit trace and I know the reason of that. So if I have a traceability, if I'm able to audit all of these, that is what will deliver value. And what is the role of the human is still to lead.
All right. As we are running out of time, and as we enter this final leg of the conversation, let me get some comments from you on India's AI ambitions, because India has a stated ambition to be a global AI leader, but ambition at the infrastructure level, that's going to be different than adoption at the enterprise level. In your view, is India building the right things to win? Are we building impressive hardware, or is the real battle going to be fought in the process and workflow layer? Give us what's the actual picture here.
The way I look at it at a policy level, if you look at the India AI policy of building the infrastructure, building the compute, storage, all that capacity locally, being the regulations, both on the financial, because how do you risk manage governance controls and all of that, the DPDP policies, all of that is pretty much very well structured. It is how to get private public participation to help build that infrastructure, because there's not one agency which can do that. So that's number one. So that has to be a core layer. You cannot skip that. But at the same point of time, the real advantage of India, given the engineering talent, given the technical talent, even for UiPath, 1 million developers of UiPath are in India. Right now, it's more than 1/3 or 1/4. Maybe 40% of the population is in India. So it's a huge. And it is not just doing odd job kind of a processing. It is doing deep technical work. So that talent is there. Where the real advantage from India is coming, how do I actually do these changes in the processes and make it more efficient for the world? I think that is where the real advantage comes in. And that is where the adoption of agentic AI becomes crucial. That is where I talked about platform plus people becomes more important instead of people, products, and process.
All right. And you've got a think tank working for you, so make sure you use that option. But as we sign off, DebDeep, for any CISO or CTO watching this, thinking, we've been through hype cycles before and we've been burnt, but at the same time, we don't want to get left behind. What's an advice you would tell them watching this presentation as to what they need to do so that they're not left behind, what they need to do differently from their peers? Your summary statement.
Because every CISO, every CIO is obviously bothered about that. And as I said, the way I look at it is, what is the option? Right.
What else do you do?
What is the option? So I think the key issue is that I think the key question is how you deliver value. How do you deliver value securely, reliably, sustainably or efficiently, means at cost effectiveness, and how do you scale? Right. I think that's the key question. And if you don't do that, like we talked about ERP, we talked about cloud. Even on ERP journey, if I'm 2 years late, it's okay. Because it's a 15-year journey. In cloud, if I'm 12 months late, it is okay. Because that's a 24-month journey. If I look at agentic, things are changing every day, every 3 months. So I lose my entire competitive advantage. My cost pressure, my cost structure gets impacted. So not acting is not an option.
You have to act, carpe diem, seize the day. And if you have to raise your value game when it comes to agentic AI, UiPath is the name. On that note, we'll wrap up this special conversation. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Till next time, this is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off. Have a great day.